Welcome to lesson 13 for Saxon Math Course 1. Today we'll be talking about problems about comparing and elapsed time problems. First, your objectives for today. After this lesson, you should be able to identify the subtraction pattern in a story problem about comparing, write an equation to solve a story problem about comparing, identify the subtraction pattern in an elapsed time problem, and write an equation to solve an elapsed time problem. Some review from last lesson. Remember your whole number place values and what those commas mean. Those commas are where you're going to say thousand, million, billion, or trillion. And in those multi-step problems, look for that word of first, and those will be the operations that you do first. So let's look at word problems about comparing first. These follow a greater number minus lesser number equals difference pattern. And there that is abbreviated with some letters. So if we're missing the greater number, that first number, we have to add to solve. This is just like missing numbers in subtraction. If you're missing the first number in subtraction, you have to add because that first number has to be bigger than the other two. If you're missing either of the other two numbers, the lesser or the difference, then you subtract to solve. Here's an example. There were 324 girls and 289 boys in the school. How many fewer boys than girls were there in the school? So 324 is our greater number, 289 is our lesser number, and we're missing our difference, so we have to subtract. 324 minus 289 would be 35, so there are 35 less boys than girls. The other type of problem we're looking at are elapsed time word problems. These are going to be word problems that deal with years. So we do these following a later year minus earlier year equals difference pattern. And there are the letters for that. So the same thing applies as with the comparing word problems. If you're missing that first number, the later year, then you have to add to solve. If you're missing the earlier year or the difference, then we subtract to solve. And just a note, that earlier year, when we say an earlier year, that year is whichever of the two that's farther away from our current year, 2018, that we're in right now. And that earlier year will be closer to 0 than the later year. So the later year is going to be a bigger number than the earlier year. So here's an example. How many years were there from the year Columbus landed in America in 1492 to the year the Pilgrims landed in 1620? 1620 is our bigger number, so that's our later year, minus 1492, which is the earlier year. We're missing the difference again, so we need to subtract. 1620 minus 1492 is 128, so there are 128 years between Columbus and the Pilgrims. That's all for your lesson this time. Make sure you do your practice problems, post any questions, and we'll talk about them in class next time. We'll see you in lesson 14.